This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
I couldn't believe sitting around the D&D table on Friday, all you other fuckers got Ravenclaw.
Yep. It's just a sign of
I feel
quality.
like Ravenclaw is like the... We don't know where to put you, so here we put you in Ravenclaw.
You're all defaults, yay!
I don't feel, as soon as you guys... It was like, yeah, we're all part of the same team, but I was in there thinking, well, I don't feel special.
I do.
That's because you are special, Jam. Pat on head.
Damn, is very special. Yeah. Speaking of special, we have a very special episode in line for everybody tonight. This is Party Loaded. It is Tuesday. We're recording a day early this week.
10 points from Ravenclaw.
28th of November. Yeah. No, we're not doing the whole points thing because that'll just take all friggin' episode, and I'm not keeping count of that. Anyway, the voice you can hear is Jam, the lone Gryffindor at the table. Welcome, Jam.
Woo! Hola.
Severely outnumbered by the quality Ravenclaws, counting myself, Luke, Ollie, and Mimo. Hello. Hello, team.
Sup,
Hello. My
rigged, that tells
Patronus is
ya.
a mountain hare.
Oh.
Mine was a badger.
Badger.
That makes so much sense.
And what was yours, Jam?
I'm a little surprised. I honestly thought Ollie was going to be a Slytherin.
Yeah.
Wow, that
And
hurts.
Luke-
That hurts,
Luke,
bro.
I thought you may have been a Gryffindor. I don't know.
I think he's got it in him. I think a couple of questions would have swayed him to Ravenclaw, but I can see where you got that.
Well, it's funny, actually. You know how sometimes you get to do those, not Myers-Briggs specifically, but those different personality profiles at different jobs that you might be at. I've done so many of those, and almost every single time I've landed right in the middle of the spectrum. I could literally sit on any of them, depending on what type of role it is. But
Like a robot.
yeah, a bit like that. Or actually, I was described by one of the testers as usually there's only two types of people that land on this area of the spectrum. The first one is people who are trying to cheat the test, and the second one is serial killers. I was like, okay, that's good to know. So,
Secret's out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Theory number one, it's because you designed things that are supposed to teach people things, so you see too much of the mechanics of the test.
Could be. That actually could be true, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is a
I don't think
robot.
you're a serial killer.
I am a
I
robot.
think potentially you could have subconsciously cheated yourself in the test, if that makes any sense.
Like overthink it kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too busy looking for puns.
I'm
But
a
I listened
serial
back to the
a lot of
episode
things,
and-
but not killer.
Yeah. Listen back to the
what a serial
episode, and
killer
Luke,
would
you
say.
were super convinced that I was going to be Gryffindor. And I'm just not.
I may have sounded that way, but I don't think I was mentally super convinced. It was kind of, I could see you falling either way. So I was dead set that you weren't going to be Slytherin or Hufflepuff. It was going to be one of the other two. So
Oh, I thought you could have been Hufflepuff.
really, okay.
Yeah.
I feel for sure I could have equally have been Slytherin. There was a couple of those questions I was like,
Yeah. Anyway, so this is Party Loaded. We are a show about video gaming and not necessarily
Oh,
Harry
Hogwarts.
Potter, but when Harry Potter Go comes out on mobiles sometime next year, that may change. So we'll see. If you want to know more about that whole thing, that's a last episode thing. So go back and listen to 104. There you go. Where Ollie was not here. So Ollie is back. Welcome back.
Hello, I'm back.
Rested yourself away from the evils of the real world. But we just had a big sort of holiday weekend for our friends over in the US, the whole Thanksgiving shindig and Black Friday sales and people
whole
eating
thing.
stupid amounts of food. And actually, do any of you guys actually ever get invited to any Australian Thanksgiving parties? Do people that you know do that?
No.
not American, but Canadians, which is earlier.
Okay, interesting. I used to get invited to a Thanksgiving party every year and end up taking home a whole bunch of leftovers. But considering that happened every single year and I was just getting so fat from eating it all, I just had to stop. I just had to quit cold turkey. So
Oh my god.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't do it. All of the food is way too sweet. I don't think I'd survive Thanksgiving in America. There's just there's sugar and everything. They put marshmallows on sweet potatoes, which
What?
is not okay.
marshmallows on sweet potatoes.
Yeah, you make sweet potatoes, which I'm assuming is kind of like yams, or it's something similar to yams.
Yeah. They're the same thing.
And then they put like marshmallows on the top and they put it in the oven, and then that's what you eat with your turkey and stuff.
Wow, okay.
Jesus.
Did not know that. Well, congratulations.
Sorry,
in the first, I was just going to say, in the first 5 minutes of this episode, we've already trodden on the same ground as last week in the form of Harry Potter and potatoes. So, good work, team.
Oh my god, we did it again!
Oh dear.
Harry Potter and potatoes, the new podcast format.
That's right. That's right. I very nearly called last episode potatoes and protonuses, but no, that didn't happen.
It should have been. Opportunity missed.
Maybe next time. Black Friday sales was kind of the lead in there. So did anyone actually end up picking up anything over the weekend or the Cyber Monday stuff that happened? All right, Jam.
I did.
All right, Jam. It's been how long since your last confession?
I don't know. There were 2 in the space of 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know how there's a Steam app for the phone?
Yeah.
And you can purchase things on it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
a problem? Yeah.
Turns out that's a thing.
It just made it super convenient to go, oh, that's on sale. Oh, that's on sale. I wanted to get that. I picked up a bunch of stuff. I've got Nier Automata. I've got the new South Park game, Wolfenstein 2, Night in the Woods. I got all of the Jack boxes. I got Dream Daddy. And I got Party Golf and Party Crashes. I'm like, okay, that's done.
Wow, you did pretty
and then
well.
I know, and then I was still looking, going, ooh, that's on sale. I have to stop because I'm having enough trouble getting through my own games. Damn it. But I got a bunch of good party games there, so we've got to have more get-togethers.
Yeah.
Some really good party games in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very, very impulsive.
Yeah. That was cool. Mimo, you sounded or seemed like you resisted for the most part. Am I on the money there, or?
You are correct.
Yeah.
I have enough games to play. And I kept telling myself, like, no. Like, it's like that thing when you, like, grow up and you're at the grocery store and you're like, I should just buy something. You'd be like, no, we've got food at home. Like, you don't need this. Like, you should just use what you've got. I kind of had that attitude to games. I was like, nope, you've got enough games for now. I will indulge, like, after around Christmas time when the winter sales and stuff happen, but left it for this time round.
And Ollie, if I know you, which I am fairly confident I do, you probably bought a whole bunch of game and or media-related stuff that were not necessarily video games. Am I?
I bought precisely one video game, which I'll talk about later, and then spent a lot of money on non-video games.
All right. Anything interesting to the geeky nerdy audience of ours, or?
Bunch of cool dice from Artisan Dice, bunch of really expensive stuff from Wormwood Gaming, a whole shitload of books from Book Depository, a lot of miniatures because I'm an all-round nerd. So yeah, it's like my Christmas to myself because they all rock up around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I finally won the home argument about our Christmas present strategy for the boys, and by the boys I mean mostly me. So we bought a Switch.
One of the boys, Luke.
What if they're listening? Oh my god.
Oh no, she's not an idiot. She knows. So yeah, so that's cool.
The boys, you twit.
Oh no, they're asleep.
Jesus.
They're asleep. They're well asleep. Well, actually, hang on. That's been inconsistent lately too. But picked up Switch, picked up Super Mario Odyssey, so that'll be getting cracked out on Christmas Day, which I'm very much looking forward to. And no doubt I'll hook up some additional games for the boys after we get that loaded up. So
after you make sure that it's working, play it for a couple of years, that kind
No
of thing.
glitches.
We got to troubleshoot it.
Start to finish.
Well, actually, you laugh about that kind of thing, but it's the same sort of process to when you buy your kids presents that require batteries. You got to make sure you've got everything set and ready to go. So, and with
except
consoles,
after you've played with the annoying toy that makes a bunch of noise, you probably give it to your child. Whereas the difference with video games is you tend to keep playing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, consoles require setup time. I mean, typically when you fire them up for the first time, there's patches and downloads and stuff to do, and you don't want to have them waiting for that on Christmas Day. That would be cruel. So I'm doing it for the kids.
You're thinking of the children.
I'm thinking of the children, yeah.
So noble.
Yeah.
I did manage to avoid spending too much money on other games. I did buy one game, which I think is probably the same one that Ollie did, which we're going to talk about shortly. But I also bought a handy-dandy new webcam for potential streaming purposes early next year. So that's going to be good fun to play with. So yes. And I got the notification that my new NBN internet is coming in the next couple of weeks. So yay! Really looking forward to that. That's going to be a good Christmas present. So yes. All right, well, We did another thing, though, because on the weekend, Jam and Memo and I all caught up with Jam's sister as well and checked out some fun stuff in the city. So, Jam, you want to take it away?
Yes, we went to see the Perth Games Festival for 2017. It was awesome. They split it up a bit this year. In the town hall, they had the video games going. And then they shifted the board games to a room in the state library next door, which was really neat. I love that they did that. They had a desk where you could just borrow the games and go grab a table and sit down and try it out.
Yeah, very similar to the PAX
really cool.
board game library sort of setup.
Yeah, and they were all like Perth-based or Australia-based made board games too.
Yeah, it was neat seeing them all there in one spot together. It's quite impressive, really. We've got some pretty cool talent and smart kidlets around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a big showing from the universities that are doing creative media programs in WA. They had a whole bunch of students exhibiting games, which was pretty impressive. There must have been like at least a dozen of them, actually. Way more than last time. So that was cool.
And Coda Dojo, which is kids between the ages of, I think, 7 and 17. Exhibiting games as well, which is kind of cool. And they're supported by lots of big companies who do those. And volunteers, which is the neatest part.
Yeah.
So,
very cool.
Did you ladies happen to see any video games that caught your eye that you particularly liked the look of?
Bramble-Lash was back this year, as gorgeous as ever. I know we've spoken about it before, but it's like a little co-op or versus game where you're little plants that run around, and then when you collide with another plant, you can have this big bramble string between you, and you can use that to like herd and round up bad guys or opponents.
Or each
It's
other.
awesome. Or each other. Friendship.
Yeah,
There was some yelling. It was
they're
funny.
just yelling friendship. And you could like pull them if they're far away from you, and then if they're next to you, you throw them, and it makes you invulnerable. So it's kind of like,
Vicious.
I sacrifice you. I live.
There was also a really cool one as we walked in. It was just like a little, really good little mobile game called Bounce House.
Yeah.
Where you've just got this perpetually side-scrolling person bouncing on a bouncy castle, trying to knock off all the other kids and avoid obstacles.
Yeah, it's
which
like
is
an
hilarious.
endless runner game, essentially.
Yeah, that was a neat idea. I liked that.
Yeah, that was cool. I checked out one which caught my eye immediately and looked very, very interesting called Star Lost. I don't know if you saw this. It was basically like a sci-fi themed game where you've got like a spacefaring mining vessel. And you basically have to mine different sort of asteroids and things that are coming across the screen and get resources to upgrade your ship, and then basically take part in like a bullet hell style sort of spaceship fighter game at the same time. So that looked really awesome, actually. It was an Android game which they had actually just adapted for the PC for the purposes of the demo on the weekend, because I think they've finally decided that they're going to take this thing to Steam when it launches as well. Still a little way off. I think it's probably about a year off, but man, it looked pretty. It was a really good looking game. So, and that was by Hoodwinked Games, which is a local outfit in WA. So Star Lost, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that one. That was really, really cool. Yeah. My son Ben was with me as well, and he got to check out his favourite game from last year again. The developer actually remembered him as well. It was hilarious. So shout out to Gray Sounders, who I think follows us on Twitter. He is making a game that is kind of a cross between Minecraft meets Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, called A Little Bit Lost. And it's exactly what you'd think. It's like, you're running around in giant, oversized sort of terrain, grass blades looking like forests, Lego blocks on the ground looking as big as houses. And basically the things you have to avoid are giant bugs. So, ants, there's a bee in the game. He's actually just added a spider in as well. And it's, the usual sort of resource gathering, sort of crafting kind of thing. It's very much still a work in progress, but it's the kind of thing that, kids will just eat up. So, yeah.
My favourite bit was hearing Ben tell him how to make it better.
Yeah.
That was adorable.
What did he actually
About
say?
the bee.
Did you hear what he said? I don't actually recall.
No,
either.
I just I could hear the tone of his voice. He was being so matter of fact and like, okay, this is how you should do it. Yeah. It It was just great.
It's funny, actually. Like he's 8, sort of going on 12 as far as his video game knowledge goes. But he's been spending quite a bit of time sort of absorbing more thoughtful game media over the last year. Like he watches a bit of Good Game Spawn Point. He watched Good Game when that was still on before, where they actually do a bit more of the sort of review commentary of games. But he's been watching a bit of stuff on YouTube that actually talks about games a bit more than just sort of, oh my God, this new thing's out, it's so awesome kind of thing. So he's starting to learn what to look out for when it comes to good and bad, which is cool. So seeing his little
his own tastes, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's finished a few games now too, so he's got a bit more of an idea as to what he likes and what he doesn't. So yeah, it's cool. He'll be paxing in no time, I'm sure. That's going to be an interesting year when that happens. But yeah.
Well, what did you like, Mimo?
I actually really liked seeing some of the games like Dreary Hamlet, which was a board game, which was in the board game area, which reminded me that this was a game that I had seen on Kickstarter and shared with the group thinking it looked really cool, and can confirm it looks awesome. And to the point where when I took it to a local game store that we went to afterwards and said, "Do you have this?" They went, "No." And then we Googled it and looked into it more, and they actually ended up writing it down, and they were going to look more into it.
Awesome.
So I'll keep an eye out for that. Dreary Hamlet. The version they had is the deluxe version that they had on their Kickstarter, which had like these really cool like little metal like tokens in them and all sorts of stuff. Bonus points to Luke's son, who, when asked to open it carefully, just slowly opened it ends way up. So slowly all of the cards fell out of the game. Which I was just like, that is just yep. No, but he listened. Like, all that Luke said was to be careful, and he was very careful when he opened it.
He made a careful, massive mess.
He did listen.
Yeah.
But
Banishment was there too, which I bought at PAX. That is cool.
They had a game there which I looked more into, which is called Build a Banquet. And I remember looking and going, that's weird. And so I looked more into it. And it is a game that you would play with friends who come over for dinner, where you sort of like build a deck or build like a recipe. And then the idea is that you could then go and make those things.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I gotta admit,
Interesting.
I'm kind of surprised that cooking hasn't been more gamified. Like, I know we've seen a lot of games in the last year or so, like Battleship Brigade just came out recently in the last week or two. And of course, what was the one that was at PAX that we've... Overcooked, yeah. Overcooked, that's the one I'm thinking of. And it just seems like there hasn't been as much kind of cooking stuff in video games in particular that I would expect. It just seems like a really easy fit. I don't know.
There's an awful lot of games that exist in that sort of space, especially like restaurant management sim type things, because they look at food as like a procedural thing, like you do this, this, and this. There's a really great board game called Burger Up, which we've played, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
As well, where you get cards in your hand and you have to build a burger, but there's sort of rules around how you can build that burger and things you can and can't put together. You're trying to fulfill orders and those kind of things. So yeah, it's interesting to see a game like this, especially coming out of Perth. The idea is basically just to gamify social gatherings, really. I mean, for me, I just imagine like someone builds this awesome thing and then you have to like run to the shops to pick up some weird and wonderful ingredient that somebody has put down. But I mean, you would just build that in. Like, once you had the game and you understood the mechanics, you could sort of build that all together, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Cool. All right, well, Ollie, let's throw it to you, seeing as you've not been here for the last week or so. So what have you been up to this week? And we can probably build on this conversation a little bit. So go for it.
So I will elaborate on the mystery game that I bought for the Steam sales, and that was What Remains of Edith Finch. So I finally got around to it. I finally played it as a reward for getting my real life stuff done, and I really enjoyed it. I was genuinely impressed. I can immediately see why Mimo raved about it so much.
I know, I didn't make it up, guys. It's really good.
So I also completed it in the last week. Yay!
Huzzah!
And last
Gold
but not
stars.
least, who else did?
I also may have acquired said game. Have not completed it though, and probably won't because the game's shit. No, I'm kidding. It's great.
It is magnificent. Oh my gosh.
Go for it, guys.
I am so impressed.
I'll let Jam get her words out.
No. Sorry. No, you go.
No? Are you sure? All right.
Yeah. Let's hear your opinion first.
Oh, they grow up so fast.
Ladies first.
Exactly. I have to admit, I like the art style. The art style is very good. It's that definite is art, not aiming for photorealism style, which I quite like. I prefer a stylized visual every now and then. I think it's just really genuinely clever storytelling. I think it has a very good overarching message, and each segment of the game was super distinct and just the right length. They did such clever pacing with the game, and the level design. Can I just say, coolest house ever. I want a house like that. Coolest house ever.
How crazy is the house? I mean, there's so much that I want to say that I can't say because Luke hasn't finished it. So, and also I don't know where Luke is at, and I don't want Luke to say because that might spoil it for other people who are listening.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because the one thing that I will say is this game is legit, and you just need to play it. It's so hard to describe to you without spoiling because it's so heavily narrative driven.
Don't ask anyone about it.
The only thing I'll say, which wouldn't be a spoiler, but will give you an indication as to where I'm at, is I'm about halfway through the family tree. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep.
The depth to the game is something that I just really enjoy, and listening to Jam talk about different elements are things that I've forgotten when I played it, because there's sort of parts that really stuck out to me, and then there's different parts that really stuck out to Jam. And also, the house is the coolest part. I think if you go back after I played the game, just kind of sat down and went, huh.
The Batcave doesn't have shit on this house.
Yeah.
I started making notes about the aspects of the game that impressed me, and I've ended up with this page of it was everything. It was everything about this game I found fascinating, incredibly well crafted, very well written, and the complexity of how it all tied together and the way it made every section distinct and unique with different mechanics and different visuals, and oh my god, it was astounding. And some of them were organic and they changed and grew. And
there's one segment that deals with a mental health as a topic, that the game mechanics in that segment mirrored the story so well. And I'm just and that's why I think it's such a good, video games are such a good medium for this style of storytelling, because you can combine the somatic components of you having to do the mouse and keyboard stuff with what is being presented on the screen. And when you get that combination, you get such a more potent message as a result. I really, really enjoyed. The game just had clever usage, and some of the level design was just fantastic.
Yeah.
You'd look around and you'd be like, oh yeah, cool, and your eyes are immediately drawn where you need to go. Then when you leave that section, you actually realize that there was all these other places you could have gone, but because the level was designed in such a clever way, you never even thought of going there. It was just incredibly well polished is the best way I can put it. Just a lot of thought has gone into this game on multiple levels.
Yeah, and I think
it shows.
Yeah, the importance of what you said there in terms of how the game approaches mental health as well. Since sort of playing the game, I've read quite a lot about it, and it's a way of sort of experiencing something after you've done it. So you finish it and you go, oh my gosh, you just get an appreciation for what that story is trying to tell you, with you just sort of learn by doing almost. And there's one particular thing that will not haunt me, but it will stay with me for a really long time, what it was trying to tell me and what I was doing and everything else. And I think it just resonated with me a little bit too closely. And oh my god, this game. I need you to finish, Luke, so that we can have a chat about this in full, because
it handles some deep themes, some very heavy themes, and it does it extraordinarily well. And it was visceral, and I just found myself getting more and more invested in what was happening.
Yeah. There's definitely some weird and wonderful moments.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're like, what is actually happening?
Yep.
Yeah. And some bits that I was like, okie dokie. And there was also bits that, much like when we reviewed her story, I was making up something that was absolutely terrifying in my head. It would
trying to anticipate.
I had anticipated this game was going to try and do something that it didn't at all. But it just shows you that it just means that I didn't feel led. I didn't feel like I was on rails. In reality, the game mechanics, I mean, there is only one ending. There is only really one way to play the game. Yeah. But I didn't feel like that at all. I felt like it was my story and, that it could be different to everybody else's experience.
Yeah. I think you bang on. Like, there's a real risk with that kind of storytelling to filling in too many at the blanks. I think it really takes too much of the agency away from the player's mind. Like, your mind is going to craft the best things possible, to fill those gaps. You don't need...
crafted some of the worst things possible, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I just really appreciated that in every aspect, from music choice to graphics to the script to the mechanics, there was personality dripping from this game. There's no cookie cutter wrote as expected moment. It is 100% crafted with passion and love by the people who made this game. It is just so clearly a passion project that has been given all of the precious support and care that it needed to become something so fantastic. Oh man, I immediately ran out and said to my brother, I don't even know if this is a game he'll like, but then I decided, no, wait, he will, because this is something as an adult that he can appreciate. And I said, you have to get this game.
I actually think your sister would enjoy this one, Jamie.
I agree. Just need to sit her down in front of a computer.
Yeah.
For long enough, tied to the chair.
Yep.
And okay, so now that you two have played this, and Luke, I guess you're getting a really good idea of what I mean. Can you
I'll be done in
imagine
the next day,
how excited I was about Florence when I saw that Annapurna was also bringing out this narrative game? Like, can you, as a publisher, I mean, obviously they have, a hand in sort of choosing what they publish and not necessarily what's developed, but Annapurna as a publisher seemed to be choosing things like Edith Finch that have like a real purpose behind what they're trying to do. And so when I saw Florence and when I played it, I was like, holy crap, like this is just like a different version, like a different message that it's trying to convey, but I think it's going to do it wholeheartedly just on that same level. Like it's going to have a depth to it.
A real abstract kind of story brand, almost. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing that you see in Gorogoa too. I mean, that's a puzzle game, but it's still trying to tell a story in a really sort of offbeat kind of way. So, yeah. No,
Good job,
agree.
Annapurna. Got to be watching you closely for whatever weird and wonderful thing you come up with next. That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And really supporting devs who potentially, like a game like Edith Finch, you could imagine would be a bit of a tough pitch, probably. Depending. I mean, obviously, I have no experience in this, but I can imagine that it would take the right publisher to take on a game like this, rather than it being independently released.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the big difference with indie games. They can afford to take those risks because the sign-off is with the people who are making the games. They don't have to justify themselves to a bigger studio and get forced into like a cookie-cutter kind of format. So it just made me realise after playing this, I'm really glad now that I've at least played enough of it to sort of be able to be part of the conversation, because when it comes to things like the Game Awards, like now looking at the indie games that are in that list for Best Independent Game this year, like I think... There's only one that I really don't know heaps about on that list now, which is Night in the Woods, which I might try and play before the event. We'll see.
Really good.
Yeah, but I mean, apart from that, this is going to be one of the most interesting categories to watch because, between Cuphead, Hellblade, Night in the Woods, Pyre, and Edith Finch, that's going to be really interesting.
Actually, that's a good point. I need to play Pyre. That's the only one I haven't played out of that list. I need to play that at some point.
I will not play Pyre just because I think I know enough about it to kind of know that it's probably not my thing. You probably would enjoy it though, Ollie. But I understand.
I have no idea what it's about.
Well, there you go. Check it out, yeah. But yeah, no, that's awesome. It's,
what remains of Edith Finch, just, if you're considering it, just do it.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a fairly short game, so the time investment is not huge either. Yep. So it is very much just a one evening, one afternoon style game. You can smash it out. Well worth it, in my opinion.
Well worth it.
Unless you're me and you start at 1 a.m.
So, in which case, I think it's still worth it. You just need it.
Yeah.
Is it about $8 now?
Yeah, it's probably not going to be on sale by the time
like
people listen. I don't think so. Yeah. It is good. Worth every penny at the very least of the low
also
cost.
Available on... so it's available on Steam, but it's also available on PlayStation, Xbox, those types of places.
Yeah. I don't think it really matters what you get it on. You can have pretty much the same kind of experience either way. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yep. All right, well, let's move into a brief sort of helping of gaming news this week. Probably the biggest thing in this this week of massive amounts of sales and Thanksgiving-related stuff clogging up all of the news feeds. There has been a bit of controversy coming from Bungie, of all places, this week. So Destiny 2 is in the headlights for all the wrong reasons this week. It seems that there has been a bit of a reveal around Destiny 2's progression system. So the way it basically works post level 20, which is kind of the level cap at the moment, is that players continue to earn XP, and once they sort of go over the level 20 XP max mark, they cycle back to the beginning, start again, but they actually get a bright engram, which is essentially the engrams that you get your cosmetic stuff out of in the game. They're the ones that you can actually buy in-game silver, which is your paid real money for currency in order to get more of those, but you can earn them just by over-leveling, essentially. Now, it was revealed by Bungie that in a post they said that they're deactivating a progression system that reduced XP gains for certain events that can be quickly and repeatedly chained. Because apparently what was happening is they'd actually changed the way the game calculates XP for people who were like smashing out, say, public events, for instance. Like if you go and do public events, for each public event after the first that you complete, you're getting progressively less and less XP, to the point that some people actually did the math and worked out that it would be roughly halved. Now, people got real pissed off about that when it first came to light about 3 weeks ago. So people were, complaining loudly because they felt that, the game was throttling the XP, which was linked to, the cosmetic stuff, which of course is the paid content. And, the conspiracy theorists were like, Bungie's trying to make this harder to get so that people are more willing to spend money and that kind of thing.
Well, it's because it was hidden. It was deceptive in the way that they did it. It wasn't just that they introduced that method of, slowing down the acquisition of the bright gems. It would have the little pop-up of, say, plus 800 XP that you would normally get for doing that mission at any level, but it wouldn't credit your XP balance with 800. So it was actually hiding behind the facade of ordinary XP gains.
So that's interesting. So I've never actually taken much notice of those numbers before, but now that you mention it, they are there, aren't they?
Yeah, they're there. They pop up, but then people noticed that the incremental gain on the bar was less, and it was taking them longer to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's very misleading.
Now, I want to throw a question at all of you, because up until about midway through today, I was very much on the same sort of length as what Jam just described there, like, hidden stuff like that, not real good for the player, it's a bit dodgy. But I actually happened to listen to a video that was put together by Nick Richardson from Screenplay today, formerly of Good Game fame. Now, he put together a position that I thought was very, very sort of thoughtful around how many games there are out there that actually feed you false information for the purpose of changing the way that the game plays. And a couple of examples he had was, I can't remember the exact game, it might have been Left 4 Dead 2 or... No, it wasn't Left 4 Dead 2. I think it was one of the shooters that Ollie's played, where the last shot in every clip actually did double damage to give you the impression of, being more powerful with that final shot and sort of finishing off the opponent. And there was another example where in the Uncharted games, apparently when you're actually on a platform that's crumbling, the game actually slows down the crumble if you're on the side of the platform that is furthest away from being able to jump off. And when you're actually at the edge where you can jump off, it speeds up the crumble to give you the impression of it being like a more sort of precarious, death-defying sort of leap to safety kind of thing. So there are instances...
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, that sort of stuff sounds really cool, and I think there's a real purpose behind it. But again, it's false information. Like it's kind of, the game is lying to you in a way to sort of make it seem different.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't consider that false information. I don't think it's necessarily misrepresenting the game. It's just game mechanics to improve the enjoyment, which is the opposite of throttling your players' progress.
Yeah.
With, false information coming up on the screen. There's a distinct line between the two.
So you don't think it's worthwhile to have that sort of system in place to prevent people from chaining events and farming?
I think you absolutely can. But it was misrepresented.
Okay.
Having 800 plus 800 XP pop up should add 800 XP to your bar.
Yeah.
It was deceptive. It's not that it's not necessarily a bad practice. I understand wanting to balance the end game, but either be transparent or at the very least don't, make it a lie.
So I guess that is the real question.
When you've got conflicting information.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the real question comes down to. Like, when is it okay to lie to your players for the purpose of improving the game?
Well, no, the others aren't lying. They're just background mechanics. I don't consider them to be lying.
Yeah, the Uncharted one is to maintain momentum or like to put a bit of pressure on the narrative in that regards.
Okay.
That's a very different thing.
Interesting. There was another example he brought up, and I can't remember the game it names, but apparently there's one game where the first shot an enemy fires at you will always have a 0% chance of hitting, just for the purposes of giving you some reaction time before getting capped instantly. Now, obviously, games like Dark Souls don't have that, but there might be
Far Cry.
Well, yeah. There might be one or two out there that actually sort of do that to give you a chance. It's almost like a forced warning shot across the bow sort of thing. So
yeah, well, even games, even if they don't do that, they have the AI yell out like, they're over here, and stuff like that, so that you know that you've been alerted, or there's a little thing that goes bling, you've been like noticed and stuff with a little eye for the stealth mechanic or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, as far as I can tell for that, with the shot automatically missing, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a shot that automatically misses when you're detected, or would you prefer an eye on your screen opening up showing that you've been detected, or blinking or flashing? One of them is much more immersive than the other if it's going for a narrative purpose.
yeah, that's true. What do you think, Memo?
Not really. I mean, the problem that they always have is the longevity of the game. So, and I guess I kind of disconnected from Destiny a while ago. But it's definitely, I mean, they need to be more transparent. If they're going to do something like that, that's fine if they could explain it. But it's not fair to do so without full knowledge to your player base.
Yeah.
I can imagine if that was done in something like that, another long-running game that it was XP-based, let's say like World of Warcraft, was my only point of reference ever, that people would be pretty annoyed if that was the case. So they need to, they just need to be open and honest with the people that are playing their games.
Yeah. And the longevity point that you mentioned is probably key too, because, obviously Bungie wants people engaged with Destiny in the end game for as long as possible. They want them in that ecosystem. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if you lie to them about how you're doing that, it's not going to go down very well.
No, and I think, in the light of recent controversy around, games companies messing with their players when it comes to, stuff like the Battlefront controversy in recent weeks. This is a pretty hot topic at the moment, and people are a bit sensitive about it. So, yeah.
Any multiplayer mechanic should have transparency in it.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
For sure. Speaking of multiplayer, a little very quick bit of news from PUBG this week. So PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has currently been negotiating with Chinese entities to get the game sort of launched over in China proper. Now, I don't know what the exact sort of issue with that was. I think it maybe was available and then it got pulled or something. I remember us talking about it a couple of months ago. But basically what's going to happen is they're going to change the game slightly for the Chinese audience. And this has been sort of negotiated behind the scenes for quite some time. And Tencent, the Chinese mega games company, have been working on a publishing agreement for it as well. But they want to bring PUBG officially into the Chinese games market. But in order to do that, they're going to have to change aspects of the game to more reflect Chinese core values and culture. And it's been sort of noted that they're going to do it to align with socialist core values. So I have no idea what that means, but that could be a very interesting looking PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for a Chinese audience.
I'm not well versed enough either to know what the hell that means either.
No. I mean, it's been theorized that maybe that could have in the battleground in the background, there could be like red banners flying. Could be things that slogans mentioning safeguarding world peace and national security and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a foreign culture to a lot of us. I think it would be very curious to see what happens. But I don't know. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds hitting China, that's a big chunk of revenue for them if they can pull that off properly.
Oh, yes.
Yep. That's a big win. So
has quite the player base.
I don't think their game's going to be stopping anytime soon. They've got Xbox One launching next month. So yeah, that's still a runaway freight train. That thing's crazy. And Jam, there was some interesting Ubisoft news today. What was going on there?
Yeah, they announced and released a little indie game from one of their little studios, Reflections, the studio that made Grow Home. It's a little game called Ode. You play as a little blob moving and exploring through the world, making music. based on the things you discover and interact. It just looks really cute, and I'm absolutely delighted that you can sort of find out about a game on the day of release still. It's really nice.
It does look
at it more.
Really fun. Like, it looks like it would be fun to play.
Do we know what platforms and availability and stuff? Or
Good question. Let me have a look.
interesting.
Clicks link furiously.
Yeah.
Yep. Scrolling.
Given how keen you were on this, I thought you'd be all over it.
I saw the article not half an hour before we started recording, and I thought it was just delightful. It's PC.
Okay.
It looks like it's available through Uplay. So
Well,
I'm gonna look into it a little more.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right. Well, while Jam's looking into that, we should move on to our main topic of the week. And lucky me, 2 weeks in a row, I'm going to run the topic. So strap in, folks. So I came up with a bit of an idea. We've been sort of tossing around the idea of talking about video games and movies, but couldn't really figure out how to approach it. So it was still entertaining, because there's one thing that is universally known is that the two things don't tend to go well together typically. So what we're actually going to do is look at it from two different angles. So video games to movies, and maybe what movies should be video games. So
I was going to say, if you want to tie into why this is relevant at the moment, last week I just saw the trailer for the new Rampage film, and I'm just like, oh, have we reached a saturation point? I don't know.
Yeah, there's been some bizarre ones of late. There's been some really good ones of late that we've all sort of had to think about what our favorites and those types of things. And I have, the trump card of all trump cards, so which I'm sure everyone will agree with me on. So video game movies have seen some absolute train wrecks. It is seen to be a bit of a curse to make a movie based on a video game, and I really it says a lot about a movie studio to take on the risk of doing something like that, and we'll talk a little bit about why. But Luke, what are some of the sort of quick sort of video game movies that you could list off the top of your head?
All right, well, I'm not going to list off the top of my head because I cheated and actually looked up a list. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing.
From the Googled list you found.
I'm not going to go through the whole thing because this list actually has over 90 movies on it. So
there's so many.
Let's just go with a few. Yeah, there's a lot. And, not all of the shit ones are by Uwe Boll either, which is surprising. Because that guy's movies, fuck me, so bad. The first one on the list, which I don't know if this is actually the first one in terms of chronological order that existed. It may well have been. And that kind of scared me because I saw this fucking thing in the cinema. And that's the Super Mario Brothers movie. Have you guys actually seen that?
Oh, we do not
it's just the most notorious. I think it's just the most notorious.
No,
I've never seen it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I've seen screenshots.
All right.
I've seen
What are some
screenshots and I
other
went,
ones?
that's
'Cause we're
not
gonna
Mario. What am I looking at?
We're going to talk about that in more detail.
I very, very clearly remember this one because I actually won tickets to see it from like a newspaper competition that you had to post in a
From the
thing
newspaper?
For it. Yeah, I know.
Jeez.
How
What's a
old-
newspaper?
Did you cut out cereal tokens and send them away or something?
Oh,
I think it was one of those competitions where you actually had to cut out a token every day for like 5 days running and send them all in to have a
Jesus.
chance. And
Adorable.
Man, at the time I didn't know any better and I enjoyed it, but looking back on it now I'm like, holy fuck, that movie was bad.
No. Hold on to that. I was going to say, like, I remember watching it and like enjoying it. Like, yes, it's an absolute bizarre adaptation of the video game. And if you've ever seen it, it's like a, what is it called when they do that to a movie? I don't know what it's called.
fuck it up.
Yeah. They made it, and rather than making a cartoon-based movie based on a very cartoony-based game, they made everybody like human or next to human, and the Goombas realism. Yeah, they went for like more realism, like live-action Mario, and it was the Goombas were the worst, just the worst.
Yeah.
They don't look anything like, not even close. Like they just look like weird Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossed with dinosaurs. Yoshi was both adorable and just wrong, potentially bordering on animal cruelty at some points. And the whole sort of Peach and all of that. It's It's just bad. I think what you should get out of this is maybe that you and your friends need to have a movie night and watch all of the really bad video game movies. Yeah, just for the lols.
I think that this is a movie that it's worth watching for educational purposes, but you probably want a whole bunch of plot.
How not to make video game movies.
I'll allow this discussion for 30 seconds longer and then we do not speak of it again.
All right, cool.
I've heard nothing but bad things, put it that way. I've not heard a single redeeming feature.
More examples, Luke. Go.
Okay, cool. All right, so that aside, I'll whiz through some more. So we got Double Dragon, which is actually one of the early ones as well. One of the actors starring in that you may know is actually Robert Patrick of T-1000 fame. Everyone probably remembers the original Street Fighter movie with Van Damme and Kylie Minogue and, oh my God,
Only very vaguely.
Yeah, that's another fucking train wreck.
Shut up, you
you're
youth.
a baby. Yeah.
Ollie, have you seen the original Mortal Kombat movie?
I have. Not when it came out, because I was very young when this movie came out.
Yeah. Did you know they actually did a sequel? So they did Mortal Kombat Annihilation as well, and Mortal Kombat Conquest as a TV series after that too. So there you go.
Is that because they hated themselves?
I've got no idea.
I think so.
Wing
Chasing them
Commander
mummies.
saw a release at one point as a movie. It actually had Freddie Prinze Jr. in it. We know the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies, of course. There was a couple of those.
Fun fact, the 2001 is actually a guilty pleasure movie of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually genuinely don't mind the 2001, the first Tomb Raider movie. It's
pretty
so
good.
cheesy and fun. And
like
my
it.
favourite part is they have an American actor putting on a British accent, and they have a British actor putting on an American accent, and they're both fucking awful, and it's the best. And then the movie
That's
goes
what I mean. Sometimes
tits up
when movies
sideways
are
at the
so
end.
bad, sometimes when movies go so bad, you're just like, okay, cool. Like, Hunt for Red October is not a video game-based movie, but the fact that they had a Russian sub-captain played by a Scottish man and they just went, fuck it, he's just got a Scottish accent. You guys just have to figure it out. Love it. Love it. It's one of my favourite things about
American
movies.
accent is the fucking
Awful.
worst.
Yeah.
It's the blur.
So good.
John Williams in
He
that
was
as well.
made for Bond.
The Dead or Alive movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
In the same way. It's just so bad and
It's so
stupid,
bad.
cliche, stupid that I just found it a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
I
ton
just
of
remember
them.
laughing through it.
All right, so we've got a pretty good idea of some of these, and we'll go into like more of ones that we loved. But why do we think they're so like automatically? The assumption is when somebody says this movie's coming out, based on a video game, everyone goes, oh crap. Why do we think that automatically we assume it's going to be bad? What
Super
makes
Mario
them
Brothers
bad?
fucked it up for everyone.
Yeah. You know what? You're not far off.
Well, I think makes a valid point. I mean, part of the reason why people expect the worst is because there is not a good track record to compare to. It's as simple as that. Like, consumer confidence is low because they've got a reason for it to be low based on history. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're different mediums. You construct a movie in a different way that you construct a video game, and people don't appreciate that. And the problem is once you change it from the way the narrative's driven in the video game to a 3-act movie script, something, whatever, you start to lose some of the things that made the video game wonderful, which makes the video game fans upset. And if you don't do it really well and actually make it a whole and complete quality product in and of itself, even if it's paying homage to a really good video game, you also don't draw in the movie buffs who are looking for a quality. You end up with the worst of both.
Yeah.
Bonus
Too
question.
often. Yeah.
Why can book to movie conversions, why have they been more, like, yes, certainly they've been bad ones, but why are they more successful than video game to movie adaptations?
I've got to get answers for that.
I've had this discussion with someone actually, and as far as we could tell, so book narrative, a lot of stuff in books doesn't necessarily translate onto screen, so you can remove things out much easier. Whereas video game, when you chop out, when you chop out stuff from a video game, you can lose narrative that already has a visual medium that fans know if they played the game. It's already there. Like, that's one of the things. That's probably horribly worded, but it's one of the thought
that kind of
processes.
makes sense. I could see that.
Yeah, that was along the lines
guess-
of what I was going to say, because there's less interpretation left to the imagination when it comes to interpreting something that someone's already seen as opposed to just read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like high-res 3D models versus some words on a page, essentially.
Yeah.
One has a lot more give than the other. The other one is games have mechanics. And so there's you have the way a game plays, and that automatically gives a feel to how the movie should be. So if you have, say,
what Jan was saying,
the Thief series, which is a stealth-based game, and you make it into a blockbuster action movie, people are going to be like, what the fuck happened here? I.e. Mario Brothers.
What is this? I think that both of them run the same gamut risk of having an invested fan base. So they want it to be good, and if it's not good, they will tear it apart as well. So there is the same risk in both. And I mean, we saw that when things like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and when they split The Hobbit into 3 movies, which just makes my eye twitch, and those types of things. So
you say it's a risk, though, but I think like the reason why this happens so frequently is because it's actually less a risk than you might think. Because what they're doing, like what a lot of these big studios are doing when it comes to a video game franchise, is they're taking a property that is a known factor that already has an audience, already has a following, and they're basically seeking to grab a whole bunch of that audience and monetize it at the box office without, having to just invent a new idea from scratch and try and get people on board that way. So it's
Agreed,
less a risk in that kind of respect.
Well, no, I think that if you looked at it as an equation, you are taking an opportunity for easy money, inverted commas, because you still have to make things, but you've got this vested audience, but you've also got a dedicated audience fan base. So if you get it wrong, they will destroy you. So
it's
a trade. Easy money, easy money, but you better get it right.
Yeah.
If you get it right, there has been some success stories. So what do we think? What?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's 3 main ways that they fuck it up usually. And the first is that they pick games that just don't have enough content in them to make a good story for a cinematic release. And Mario is a perfect example of that, because you look at all the Mario games, it's Mario running around like smashing Goombas and stuff without him interacting with other characters that much. Like, in order to make that into a movie, you have to insert a whole bunch of content that's just not Mario.
And it's a very tired story of rescue princess.
Exactly.
Blah blah blah. Which lots of movies exist. Rescuing princesses.
And the opposite end of that too is that there's games that have far too much content in them.
Yeah.
And they try and cut that back to actually fit it into a movie format. And it's almost like, the games that tell their story best by actually being able to interact with them. And I think you made the perfect example when we were talking about What Remains of Edith Finch earlier. Like, that would probably make a terrible movie, because part of the reason why it works as a game is because of the unique ways that you can interact with each aspect of the game. You just can't recreate that in a movie.
Way to shit on my nomination for later, Luke. Good job.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this is all based on opinions. So.
Pre-screw you. All right. So we will probably have a bit of a hot debate here.
Right.
But what do we think are the best video game to movie adaptations? Jam's up first. Because Ollie was ready to go. So
Damn it. I was so prepared.
bonus points for preparing.
Most of them. The one I like the most is probably, there's a couple that I don't mind. I liked the first Resident Evil movie.
Yes.
Ting, ditto.
It didn't think too highly of itself.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
That was the exact reason I loved it. I went in expecting it to be shit, and I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And then the others got a bit weird and they tried too hard. I also like, and this isn't sort of live adaptation, but the Final Fantasy movies were cool.
Yeah.
But
including Spirits Within?
I liked Spirits Within.
Okay.
I thought it was just this really interesting, abstract type of what if, story. It's a fantasy. It was.
Oh, no, I agree with
very
that.
rich story games.
The only issue I have with Final Fantasy Spirits Within is it wasn't Final Fantasy.
I know, but
that was the only issue I had with it.
That's the thing. That one's a bit iffy because it's really not a game adaptation per se.
Yeah.
It's an extension.
But, Advent Children, that was fun.
Yeah, no,
it was
I like Advent
Final
Children.
Fantasy 7. Yay.
All right.
So those are mine.
Good. Ollie?
Well, mine, I already mentioned the first Tomb Raider movie. I quite liked. I didn't mind the second one, but the first one I really enjoyed just because it's like Jam said with the first Resident Evil movie. It's very self-aware. It knows what it is.
Yeah.
It's content with that, and that's fine. And I like the
was
first
just glad
Resident
she
Evil
didn't
movie
do
for that
that
as well.
sideways walk that Lara Croft does in the video games. I was
because I don't
half
think it's humanly
expecting that
possible.
scene. Yeah. I do it all the time when I'm walking. Sorry, I just squeezed past you there.
That's all right. I liked a scene from the Doom movie. I liked a scene
There's a Doom movie?
Really?
There
my
is.
God.
It has The Rock and Carl Urban in it.
What?
I
I
have
have
not
not seen
seen
this.
I shit you
Wait,
not.
is it like a really
2005.
non-emo
Don't see
movie?
it. It's bad. It's real
It's
bad.
very bad, but it has one good scene in it, and that's it.
You're not talking
So-
about the
Yeah,
FPS
I think
scene,
the
are
game
you?
is just like top cheese anyway, so you might enjoy the movie just for
Oh,
that
no, no,
reason.
no.
And that's
If
fine.
they made a new Doom movie based on the Doom of last year, that could be fucking amazing.
Oh shit!
But
No, because they'll
it's
fuck
not.
it up.
Yeah,
It'd
they
be
will.
like Alien versus, I don't know, something with a rock concert in it.
Well, the reason why I don't think the new style
Weird.
Doom would work as a movie is the same way that I mentioned before I don't think Mario works, is because there's not enough character interaction. Like, it's about a godlike
Yeah.
marine
It's
just fucking
not a
laying
story
waste to
game.
everything
It's
around
Not
him.
a story.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
about
story.
blowing things up, and there's only so many. I mean, there's plenty of movies that are just about blowing things up, though. So anyway, all right, Luke, what are your faves? Unless Ollie, you had more.
I had one that I like, that I enjoy. Like, it's not what I would call a good movie, but I like what they did with it, and it's very pretty. And that
Yeah.
was the Prince of Persia movie.
The Jake Gyllenhaal one?
I haven't
Yeah,
seen that.
I didn't
Yeah.
mind it. It was
Me
very
either.
pretty. It was very light and popcorny. But
Have you
yeah,
played the game?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I like the game.
yeah.
I genuinely really like Sands of Time.
I mean, none of us are like doctors of movies or doctors of the arts or anything. So I guess, we're not necessarily good. We're just saying that we thought were good adaptations for us.
Yeah, these are
So-
personal opinions.
There
It's,
you go.
it's funny, though, looking through this list of
Almost
90
like
odd
this.
video game movies, I reckon I've seen about 60 or so of them, so...
Oh, Jesus.
You're addicted
My
to
list
them, man.
was so small.
All right, Luke, you get a minimal time slot to
All right, well,
discuss your 1960
ironically-
movies that you've seen.
I actually think that the absolute best video game movie ever is actually not based on a video game specifically. It's just a video game movie. And the reason...
Oh.
Yeah, the one I think is the best out of all of them is Wreck-It Ralph. Like,
That's on my list too. Yeah.
Yep, good call.
but it's not actually
Yeah.
based on, like... You
I
know,
didn't consider
movie
that.
is
Yeah, because-
solid. It is
Yeah.
solid.
I will completely agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that I think you could go and see, like the kids would watch, and then they'd be like, "Oh, what this game?" And you'd be like, "I played that game. I played that game." Those types of things. It
Back in my day.
pings on the nostalgia strings for parents, I think, in a big way,
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
especially if you played arcade games.
But if you want to go actual movies, that are based on actual games, then I'd probably say Res Evil's good. Silent Hill's actually surprisingly good, and the original Mortal Kombat's not bad. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So. But
All
by
right.
the same token, I think the worst one is also a movie that is not based specifically on a video game either, and that's Pixels with Adam Sandler. That one movie.
I
is
have not seen
fucking
it because
bad.
somebody saw it and went, "It is just the worst.
Yeah,
Don't watch it."
it
I
is-
even
it is
watch
worth
it
voted
watch
on
it
it.
either.
Don't watch it.
Yeah, there is only so much. I quite like Adam Sandler. Like some of his movies, I think are pretty good. But there's times where I'm like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. No more.
It is the worst of the Adam Sandler movies, and that is saying something.
Whoa. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm avoiding that one. All right. Well, in a move that will surprise no one other than Wreck-It Ralph, my best video game to movie adaptation was actually Warcraft. I think that was done spectacularly well. I think it was something that I definitely went into thinking this is going to be utter shite, and really. I kind of felt like I did going into like Lord of the Rings. Like I'm like, they cannot possibly get this right. Like the story itself is loved by so many people in different ways, and they're also fighting an audience which is very strictly one side or the other. There's very few people who are fans of this game who are like, I am both.
See, Imogen, this is what I love about you: diversity of opinion. Anyway,
it's yeah, I think that I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was like, it certainly was missing like big bits, but it's an exciting start to what could be, and was treated very well. And I like the way they kind of mushed a couple of things together. I think it made sense, and I think that they had equal showing for both sides, and I thought it was well done. I think that it was very much a come and watch things explode movie, which was great. So I did enjoy it. There was definitely some cheesy parts, and some of the Alliance armor was laughable because just of the way that they transferred, the look and feel of the game into the movie was good. But I thought it was good adaptation. I think it was a good enough movie. I think it definitely could have been a lot worse.
well, if China has its
damn
way,
sure.
you'll see a sequel at some point. We'll see.
Oh, you're definitely seeing a sequel. There is no way they will not make another one of these movies. It just will depend where they go with it. Whether they skip
Nearly
forward like
500,000
way
at
in
the box
time.
office. Yep.
Yeah. It did pretty good.
Do you think
All
it would
right.
have been better
billion,
if
sorry,
Blizzard
not
had
half
have
a
made
million,
it
Jesus.
animated like the Overwatch shorts? Do you think that would have been a better outcome?
I think it would be tough to do the story justice, I also think Overwatch would be a good candidate for having an animated based movie. I think Warcraft, people tend to, if you're a fan, you tend to see yourself in that world, even though it was based on like pre-World of Warcraft for a lot of the elements. People tend to see themselves as the characters, so I think that's why they made that choice. But yeah, I think it could have been good, and I hope that, I mean, later on, I guess video games that I'd most want to see a movie of would be Overwatch, amongst other things, which I hadn't thought of until just that moment. But yeah, so you didn't like it, Luke. Are you telling me that I'm wrong? My fun is wrong.
I just think it falls into that trap that I mentioned before. It's one of those video game franchises where there's too much material. So you're making a movie, it suffers for it.
You could just make lots of movies, but I think they did so well at reining it in. Like, they could have done so much more, but they decided to focus on two really big elements.
May I speak as a not huge Warcraft fan?
Go for it.
As someone who's not familiar with the lore, I got genuinely lost at some point. I was like, okay, this is a person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people.
So many
I'm glad
people.
I regularly read fantasy novels, otherwise I'd be fucked right now.
Yeah, it's definitely people heavy. Like, it's
Yeah.
there's too many threads, and so that's why I say I think from a Warcraft fan perspective, they did well just reining it into what they did, because there is so much more.
Like, I feel if I had known the lore more, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, can you
From
imagine
a
a
story
movie made
point
on
of
like
view.
an Arthur's Jaina type thread? I think that would be sweet, and yeah, I think it would be cool. I mean, but I think the more fingers that Blizzard has on that, the better, because I think they have a really solid opinion of where their stories are. So anyway, I could go on forever.
It's your Hearthstone.
Yes, it is my Hearthstone. So best movie to video game adaptation. So this has happened the other way, where movies have been then therefore turned into video games. So let's start with Ollie this time, since he was so keen to start last time. What do you think are some of the best movies that then have been changed into video games? So what are
Chronicles
the
of
best video
Riddick.
games?
Yeah, that's a good one, for sure.
Escape from Butcher Bay, actually just a genuinely good game.
Oh, there you
Like,
go.
hands down, like, I think it's got like 80 to 90% across every like review thing ever, and is just actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. So that, and I really enjoy the Riddick movies. So yeah, that for me was easily one of my favorite movie to video game adaptations. That, and because there's such a broad category, I feel like I have to mention it, but I don't feel like it's the one specific movie had one specifically good game for it, and that's the Star Wars films. Because there's a lot of good Star Wars games, a lot of bad Star Wars games, but there's a lot of good ones that don't necessarily directly, like, isn't The Empire Strikes Back the computer game sort of thing.
Don't tell
But
the
there's
story.
a lot
They're
of
just in
good
the universe.
Star Wars computer games. Yeah,
Can I go next? Because I was going to say the same thing.
Go for it.
sure.
You know?
Yeah.
To the Star Wars, there have been some good ones, and it's a very cool universe, so it just naturally is exciting to play in that sandbox in a video game. Also, young me, way back in the day on PlayStation 1, really liked the Bugs Life video game. I remember playing the shit out of that.
You should remind me of something.
Fun. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll go in after you. Sorry. Yep.
Oh, that was it. There's a lot I forget about it because it was so long ago, but I adored it.
Movies are great places for video games
just
for kids.
cute.
Just excellent.
I completely forgot. I'm sorry, because I rave about this game on a regular basis. The Spider-Man 2 game.
There you go.
Fucking fantastic.
I was waiting
Best
for
web
somebody
slinging.
to say that. Yeah.
Yep, best web slinging mechanics around. Goddamn, the new Spider-Man
about
game has
something
lots to
too.
live up to. Alright, go, quick.
I'm going to interrupt you. All of the movie Lego game adaptations.
Oh, Jam
I was
stole
gonna say
mine. Yeah.
Lego Harry Potter,
Yeah.
Lego Lord of the Rings, Lego Indiana Jones, and on, Lego
Marvel
Holy
Heroes,
shit.
DC.
They're all just
Put
so much
any
fun.
movie in Lego and I will play the shit out of it.
Yep.
Like, those games are so good. They're
Agreed.
Just take a good game, put the skin on it, and you win.
I do have one that I think drops the mic on all of that stuff, though. Like, for its time, I think this is pretty much the definitive best movie to video game adaptation, and that's GoldenEye. That game was fucking amazing.
I didn't play it.
Yeah, neither did I.
Okay, let me counter your proposal here. GoldenEye was a good game. I will definitely say this. If you played it now, do you think you would still hold it in as much high esteem?
That's why I said for its time.
Okay, cool. Fair enough.
And I'm out.
Caveat.
Yeah, but the same can be said of a lot of these games, Ollie. You know, it's,
Not Escape from Butcher Bay. You play that now, that will be a good game still.
yeah, Spider-Man 2, I would argue, but yeah, okay.
I'm not going to argue that one because I know.
All right. Well, all I
I'm
was going to
well
say
aware.
was, it was anything Lego, and I think the winning formula here is good mechanics and put a skin on it, and you will win. Especially if you can target it at a child-based audience.
I think you've got to capture something about the whole point of the movie and the game itself. So it can't just be a cheap knockoff. Because we did go through that decade or two where like every single fucking big tentpole movie that came out had like X the game, and they were just absolute rubbish sort of marketing cash grabs. So
yeah, but I think Lego, what that does is the one thing that all the Lego games have in common is their humor.
Yeah.
And so even if the movie is super serious, they still manage to put the Lego humor in it. And so what they've done is they were like, we can just make these characters look like whatever they want. It's why the Lego movie is so incredibly popular, because it's just you got all of these different franchises smooshed into one, and everyone's like, I'm a fan of this, I will watch the movie. So, and Lego is one of those universal things. People all like it. Unless you're a super Duplo fan and you're stuck in the past. Who knows?
In which case you're just wrong.
Oh, snap.
Oh, snap, Duplo fans.
Well, there's no Meccano, the
Shots
movie,
fired.
is there?
All right, so we very quickly are going to go through what games we think would make the good feature film. Like, what should be made into a film that is just a game currently? Jam, go.
Okay, I have two.
Yeah.
The first, because of its atmosphere and its mystery, BioShock. I think a really good script and some talented, I guess, costuming and set pieces could make that awesome. Also,
Man, cosplayers everywhere could just audition for that costume design, right?
and my other one, because of the extraordinary characterization and the plot and the suspense, The Last of Us.
Yeah.
It's already just
They are making a movie of that, so it will happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good story. I'm so glad if they obviously stay true to it. And I hate saying this about a game that I dearly love, because you do have that fear that they're going to botch it. I'll be so glad to see a story of that quality successfully reach more people, because it's a wonderful game.
Apparently, Ellen Page is playing Ellie in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was confirmed. I thought that was just rumoured.
I don't know. I
heard
know it was
just rumour
confirmed
as well.
at one point. I don't know.
Spurious facts with Luke. So I guess I sort of discovered one while we were talking. Mine would be Overwatch. I think suddenly I went, oh yeah, I want that to be a film. Hells yeah. Put that out. I will pay the shit out of it to see that at the cinema. Especially if it's anything like the quality of what's been coming out in terms of the story. I think there's a story there waiting to be told. Of course, Overwatch coming from a game that was cancelled. So the world kind of was going to be used as more of an RPG system and is now not. I actually, and the one that Luke shot all over earlier is I would like to see Edith Finch. Now I know that the difficulty with Edith Finch is once you've played the game, you know the story. So maybe what I mean is I'd like to see the depth of story and maybe less traditional methods of storytelling that you would find in a movie played out. So more of that first-person perspective, not necessarily feeding you what is actually happening. You have to learn by discovery. And I'm trying to rack my brain for a movie example here, and I'll try and think of one. But something like
maybe a
Edith
weird
Finch, I think, would be
example
Like
could be like Pulp Fiction, but like not in that Tarantino style, but more in the sort of pulp short stories blended together into a larger whole sort of style.
Yeah, you don't actually know what's going on until about halfway through the movie. You're like, okay, great. All right, now I'm getting more. Or like Reservoir. Yeah, like that kind of abstract way of storytelling. I would prefer, rather than being and here's this character, and here's this character, and here is their backstory. The more of that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
All right, Ollie, how about you?
I have two. So I have a dark and gritty one, which I'd love to see. Metro 2033. I would love to see as a movie. I reckon because the plot is relatively short, you wouldn't lose a huge amount from the game. Also, it's based off of a novel, so they could just base it off the novel, and then you don't have the video game stigmata going on.
It'd be such a good thriller.
They could do some very good stuff with that, and visually it'd be very distinct as well. And you could do some very cool claustrophobic camera work with it.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
And then the exact opposite of that is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, that would be so good. When you typed that out, I was like,
Because-
yes, I want to see that movie.
You have these amazing visuals that you could work with. You have a well-developed and fleshed out world. you have a story that you can fit into a 2-hour movie quite comfortably.
Yeah, it's linear enough to do, for sure.
Yeah, it's linear enough, and the reason I picked these two in particular is because there's no, like, this is the story I've told with this character, and I think this is why Jam as well didn't pick games like Mass Effect or Deus Ex or anything like that, because
you
have your own personal story with it.
Yeah.
My canon is my canon, don't mess with it, I will be
essentially, yeah, like... You can lose a lot of it, so I don't think like Mass Effect would make a good story in that, like a good movie in that regards. But something with like a short, contained, more linear plot makes a better movie, in my opinion.
I think
that's just my opinion.
There's a lot of stories like Mass Effect.
What about photo mode?
Just stop halfway through the movie to take a photo.
Jam. No, that's the DVD special.
That's the marketing
Take
posters.
your phone to the cinema. Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, like Mass Effect, I think there's a lot of games that would make a much better TV series than movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would watch the shit out of Mass Effect Andromeda, the TV show.
All right, Lucifer.
Well, I mean, my default choice would have been Metal Gear Solid, but that's actually getting made into a movie, so, no dates or anything confirmed for that yet, but it is apparently happening, so looking forward to it. Things that are not confirmed, I would say Knights of the Old Republic, because, oh my god, if they're going to continue making Star Wars films, that is one of the areas of the Star Wars mythology they absolutely need to hit, because the Old Republic is a fantastic canvas to draw some stories on. And Castlevania. Now, Castlevania has actually had the Netflix series recently, which they did really, really well. But I think that could easily be a feature film. Like, it is contained enough, and I think there is enough scope for character interaction there as well. Despite the fact that the game is a largely sort of single-player sort of platformer game with not a lot of RPG elements in it. I think it would be... Because it's still that very classic kind of adventurer, Van Helsing-esque style versus, Dracula and other supernatural elements kind of tale. I think that there would be enough excuse there for sort of interaction, like either with Simon Belmont or Trevor Belmont, against the sort of evil characters that he encounters, because they would, most of them have the ability to talk, or if he was actually, in there with someone else, in like a duo sort of situation, kind of similar to what they did with... what was that movie that Chris Hemsworth was in, which was kind of like a Helsing-style movie, but it was the Hansel and Gretel one, I think?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Which was very much that kind of, setup, but yeah, obviously.
No, that wasn't Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah,
that was
I feel like that person is
Hawkeye.
wrong.
Guy who plays Hawkeye. Gone blank.
Yeah, Jeremy Renner. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Oh my god, could not be further from Chris Hemsworth. Like, by about 2 feet.
I was thinking Avengers, anyway.
Holy crap.
I think Castlevania is cool.
I agree with Castlevania only because you have a relatable villain. And yeah, it's Dracula, but the way that they've set up his story, if they did it the same as the TV show, the hardest part always for a lot of video game villains is they're just mustache twirling, like, I want to end the world, evil.
Yeah.
They're not always relatable. And that's one of the biggest things that video game movies, I feel, stuff up, is they don't use relatable villains.
Yeah.
Or they go, fuck it, we don't need to worry about that. Let's just focus on having cool action.
And Dracula in the Netflix series has definitely got that relatable.
Yeah, he's quite relatable from his opening thing. You're like, yeah, that's fair. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Really good series too. Highly recommend.
Okay, so flip the coin. What film would you like to most see be made into a video game? Starting with Luke.
All right, so I know that there is a Judge Dredd video game, which is like 1995 or something like that, but that's old school style Dredd. I would actually like to see a game made on the Carl Urban Dredd of recent years. That would be freaking amazing. That would be really cool. Or the Highlander with Christopher Lambert. So the whole,
They not made a Highlander game?
I don't think they have. I mean, the movies are a little different and weird. Like the second one is a sci-fi movie, whereas the first and the third are not. They're kind of present day. So it's a weird sort of time jump around sort of the situation. But I'd imagine a game like that being very focused on the sword play and the sword art, and
There was a
have that
1995 one, Highlander: The Last of the McClouds.
Oh, was there? Okay,
There you go.
interesting.
And a cancelled 2008 one.
There you go. But the
So it
whole
was
absorbing
obviously
people's
great.
powers by sort of, beating them in that sort of, one-on-one combat. That sounds like a really cool game mechanic. So, yeah.
Neato. All right, go for Jam.
I may not have done my research properly because my first pick was John Wick, but I think some little games have been made in that vein. However, I would like a really cool, immersive, big-ass game set in that universe where you're not necessarily John Wick, but you're...
Adjacent.
You're following the law. You're part of that hidden community doing the stuff and going. I've forgotten all of the places. What's the name of the hotel?
Oh, I'm just trying to remember.
Continental.
That's it.
The Continental. Yep. All of that.
Cool.
I think that would be really sweet and fun.
They could
And
make
also,
a game
you know,
about all
it'd be
the
a cool
enemies
shooter.
inside there that just piss themselves when John Wick comes through, and they could call it the Incontinental.
No, stop.
Oh, jeez.
Also, and I heard you mention this earlier, Ollie, when we were talking. Memento was my other choice.
Ah, yeah.
And it may have been inspired by my Edith Finch experience. I think a game where you are just getting pieces and trying to put them together to unravel this puzzle to find out what is going on, or even who you are, or just that kind of mystery puzzle element, but with a really good story to it, like really narrative driven and dramatic and yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that would be really cool.
Is that the
Cool
Guy Pearce
discovery
movie from
mechanic.
about 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, that movie's awesome. Yeah, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
a fantastic Nolan film.
One of the
Just,
best.
You know, you have to find the clues because you yourself don't have a clue what's going on.
All right. Ollie.
All right, my one. I've got two because I'm cheaty doodling like that.
Well, everyone else
I
had two,
reckon
so go for it.
That's fair. Pan's Labyrinth, I reckon,
That would be so cool.
a
That would be
very
terrifying.
cool. Yeah, exactly. It'd be this odd mix of like fantastical. Ooh, what's this cool thing? Oh god, it's actually fucking horrific. And then the real
It's
world.
stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, it's literally the stuff of nightmares.
Stranger Things, the game.
Yeah, essentially-ish. I think it would have a really interesting dichotomy. Both you could have very different visual styles for the Labyrinth world and then the real world. And then there'd be a nice dichotomy with the gameplay styles and that sort of thing, which I think you'd have like more social encounter versus more problem solving in the Labyrinth. I reckon it'd be
Oh
a
my
little bit
god.
interesting like that.
Pan's Labyrinth, the video game, is Persona. Holy crap.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep.
Whoa,
that
my
works.
brain just broke.
Mind
Holy
blown.
crap. There you go. All right, what's the second
The
one?
other one I would like to see, and I know the game exists already. It's The Thing.
Yep.
Now,
I've played this.
the
Isn't
first
it highly regarded?
Yeah, it's good. It was on Xbox.
It was actually quite decent. Yeah. And that was a narrative single-player game. The Thing game that I want to see, and I think because there's been a slew of these now, think like Gary's Mod Murder, Trouble in Terrorist Town,
Oh, yeah.
Friday the 13th, all those games.
Evolve type.
Dead by
Evolved,
Daylight.
Yeah, Dead by Daylight, where you have that one bad character and the good characters, and you don't know necessarily who the baddie is, and that's the thing, the alien, and then everyone's trying to figure out who they are whilst trying to achieve an objective or something like that. I feel like we've got all those
there's
mechanics
an indie
set
game
up
that
now.
released this year that does that. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Oh, I'm sure there has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would be
many.
amazed if it doesn't exist, but not as like the official licensed thing, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like games like Trouble in Terrorist Town and Gary's Mod, and then you combine that with the mechanics that are in Dead by Daylight and Friday 13th and stuff like that, and I reckon
Yeah.
that'd be amazing to
spooks.
have fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be glorious.
All right. I'm going to quickly go through mine because turns out we can sure talk about this topic. Is that I would like to see a film which is actually based off a book called Rebecca, which I didn't know the film version was an Alfred Hitchcock movie. So there you
It
go.
is.
I've watched it so many times just because I really like the book. The book, it's basically a romance-driven mystery, I guess is the best way to describe it. And I think that it would be really great to see a video game that is set in this and has that kind of black and white feel that Rebecca does as the movie, because the movie is really good. And I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, this is an amazing adaptation of a book that I love. And now it makes sense as to why, because it was a Hitchcock movie. That's fantastic. But I think I haven't played a video game like that. I'd love to play a narrative video game based black and white movie. I think that would be sweet. And also the sort of making some choices and making it narrative driven that way. So I think I mostly just want to see it as an art style or as a direction for a game. So if you want to make a romance driven black and white film that also has some cool mystery elements and some outdated ideologies, then hit me up. Let's do that. Honestly, if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, I highly recommend it. The book was released in 1936.
Wow.
So, first published, so it is very old, and the movie's like 1950s, I think it is,
have to
that it
watch
came out. I have a copy of it, multiple copies of it, in fact, on DVD, so you
I'll
guys
have
are
to
welcome to
borrow
borrow it. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's pretty good. I think we have more to talk about this. I think there might be a movie mashup to video game based topic in our future.
Yeah.
We have to pick two video games
Another
and mash
game
them
design
together
movie
to make a cool
thing.
video game. Yeah. I think that would
That'd
be
be
neat.
cool.
All
be
right,
down for that.
so
Like it.
I'm going to do this again, and thankfully we made notes last time that we should put notes in the show notes, and so now someone has thankfully put this all out for me. So if you want to talk to us about your
welcome.
favorite video game movies or movies that should be made into video games, you can email us at mail@partyloaded.com. You can find us on Facebook at partyloaded, on Twitter at partyloadedshow, or on YouTube, which is youtube.com/channel endgame, or Google us because we'll be found. You can find us.
10 points to Ravenclaw. That was well done.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Jesus.
points. Raking in the points. Gotta beat Gryffindor at the point game.
No,
whatever that
never.
means. I should be more of a Harry Potter fan. I'm bad.
Dumbledore's an asshole.
All right, so Jam,
Don't you,
you have
dare
about
talk
a billion.
about my Dumbledore that way.
Dumbledore.
Yeah. I will smite you, boy.
Dear. Anyway, Jam, next week of gaming, you have so much to
Next
play.
week of gaming.
What are you
I have
gonna
so much
play?
to I don't know. I can't. Don't
You're gonna
ask
play
me.
GTA forever. That's what you're gonna play.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
We are still absorbed in that game like nothing else.
Oh my god, it's so good. I bought
Yeah.
a hanger. It's amazing.
I'm not sure on these. The flight missions are more fun to do, but they don't make me a lot of money, and they're very stressful. Luke, what do you got coming up next week of gaming plans?
Well, I want to finish Edith Finch, and I actually got back to Cuphead the other night, so I've been playing through the third aisle on Cuphead, experiencing some of those
Still
bosses.
doing that one. I thought you'd finished that.
No, I'd never got around to finishing it. I kind of got distracted by PAX, I think, was the thing that interrupted all of that.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I've just been fighting the bee hive boss level in the big building. That one's really cool. So
That is a fun one.
All right. And Oliver, what are you going to do?
I have no idea.
We'll figure it out when we get there, hey?
Yep, I'll play it by ear. I have nothing in my to-do list as far as my Steam library is concerned because I only bought
Holy
one
moly.
game.
Wow.
check out Pyre, Ollie. Check out Pyre.
There you go.
You can
That's
do
my
Pyre.
homework for the week. I'll check
Done.
out Pyre and then play more of the same games like GTA and PUBG.
Well, we all need to play some golf with your friends as well in preparation for next
Yes.
week.
Ooh, yes, that as well.
Party game of the month. That game is so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it from us. We will see you next week, hopefully, to talk about our party game of the month. Until then, bye-bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.